Okay, let's get started. So, if last time we discussed about few things, and let's go ahead and see what was discussed. Yeah, so we discussed about content projection, and now we have to talk about the after view unit. But I think we also left after content check. So let's see what after content check is, and then we'll talk about after view unit. And before I move ahead, actually, we just wanted to thank you. Thanks everyone for like 100 followers on Twitch. So we just reached 100 followers last week. So thanks a lot for that. And this, as I said, this videos will be available. I think this is the last week. It will be available on YouTube. So, sorry, not on YouTube, but Twitch. But after that, you can actually go ahead and find all the videos in case you want to actually recap or do something, rewatch the videos. You can just go to the YouTube channel where these are available inside Angular Getting Started, and you can find all the videos here. I think I have updated three, initial three, and next two is pending. Hey, hey Bilal, thanks for following. Hey Krishna, thanks a lot. Means a lot to me. So next two videos will be available. I think I'll upload tonight because I think I made a mistake while uploading the earlier videos. There was a few minutes where we had actually taken a break, and it doesn't make sense to actually upload those on YouTube. So I have to actually edit a little bit, and then I'll update all those videos as well. But in case you have anyone, this three videos actually talks a lot about TypeScript. So in case you have any of your friend who's looking to get started again, get started with Angular, or even he or she wants to learn TypeScript, you can actually refer this videos to them as well. And yes, let's go ahead and get started. And here we will be talking about first, let's move on and see what we had done so far. So if you remember, we created containers, and last time we used this content child and content children both, and we discussed where we can use content child. So we have one instance of component, we can use content child, and in case we have multiple instances of content children, you can go ahead and use sorry, multiple instances of your component, you can go ahead and use content children. This is really useful in case you are creating your own component and you want to actually take the you have some content placeholders, right? For example, here, uh, so we are placing some components here. For example, you have you want to create your own drop downs, right? And you want to create or you want to create your own multi-select list, something like that. So you can actually go ahead and use the component content children there. So that's one use case. And we have, so Krishna, no, actually, I don't want to do anything for money. I love doing for free. I enjoy it. I mean, if you do something for money, you have a lot of constraints. So it's a lot of work, and earning money is not and actually uh, my motive. So I just want to make my most of contents available for free. So yeah, so we discussed about after content in it, and let's see here. Hmm. So what happens after content in it, right? So let's say if you updated some properties here. So here what we are doing is we are updating some properties of your order component, right? So component, so of course there will be a change section which will run for each and every component. And after content checked is actually an event where all the lifecycle hooks, sorry, all the change direction has already run. So in case you want to update few other things which is related, it is I have not used anywhere, but because after content in it is more than enough for me in most of the cases. But in case you get some issues where you have some strange error, your views are not getting updated, you can actually go ahead and implement this after content check and update the other contents which are actually causing some issues here after content check, because this is a lifecycle loops where lifecycle loop where all the previous change direction has been already completed, and then you can actually, this is a safe place in case you want to update more contents. So in case you get error, so as I said, I've never used it in my use case, but yeah. So that's why we are not going to talk a lot about this after content check. We just going to talk about the important ones like after view unit. So let's move on to the after view unit, and in after view unit we will discuss about few more scenarios. For example, we will talk about how we can do component communication via view child and view children. We will talk about template references as well. So let's go ahead and do that and see what we have here. Cool. So let's take an example. So here, hey, R2, wait, T, I'm not sure what's your name, but yeah, thanks for following. So yeah, so let's go ahead and do after view unit. And here I'm going to take an example. Let me think. So yeah, let's create a new component. Yeah. So LGGC, so it's a new component which we'll be creating. And let me just name it as header component. A small example. And now in this header component, what we will do is we will create a property. I'll call it as header. And we'll say this is of type string. And it has empty value by default. And then we'll just render the header here. So I'll say this is h1 header. And now what I want to do is I want to use this header component into, let's say, product and order both. But I don't have any input property available here. So you can see I don't have any input property. Of course, I can make it input property because this is a really small component which can work with input and output, but that's not the idea. The idea is to actually show you an example of using view child. So let's go ahead and do that. So here on product, so we do have h1 title here, right? So what I am going to do is I'm going to comment this out, and rather than that, I'm going to use header. So we have ecom header, right? So this is our component name. And let's go ahead and see how our application looks like. So I am already running ngserve. So let's see if it is completed. Yes, it is completed. So let me just zoom in. Okay. So we have, so let's go back to the application now and see what's happening here. I'll just disable the breakpoints. And nothing much, right? So we cannot see any header information here, but let's see if that element is available. So we can see ecom product and h1 product information. Where is that? Just a second. Let me just save it again. So probably it's not compiled. So let's see ecom root, and then we have ecom container because we placed everything inside component, and then this is product, and this is your div. Where is the button toggle? Okay, here it is, right? So you can see it's ecom header, but we don't have anything available inside this header, right? So we don't have any values, but element is available. Of course, it doesn't display any content. And now what I want to do is I want to actually I want to actually refer or take an instance of this ecom header component in my code base, and then I want to assign some title. This is really useful in case you have some component, for example, any third-party component where you don't have any control, but you want to actually change something programmatically. So any component, right? So let's say some component which doesn't contain input and output property. and you want to access those component inside your code base, that's totally allowed in case you are trying to access any third-party component which you cannot control, right? You cannot update it, or let's say some component which is written by your team, but they don't want to expose it via input and output, probably for some reason, and you want to access those programmatically in your code base. So how you can do it? That's what you can achieve using view child and view children. So let's go ahead and talk about view child first, and then we'll talk about view children. So to get the access of this header component which we have already written, what you can do is you can create a view child. So view child is a decorator, so we can use view child decorator, and then you can pass the component here. So right now we are trying to access header component. So it can be any component. In our example, it is an header component, and then I can say header component, and then we can say this is type of header component. And as we are using strict mode, somehow we have to use this nullable operator, so it will not cause any issues. And now we can access this header component, but let's try to access this header component. So here I'm going to do it first in ng on init. So I'm doing a console.log, and I'll say this dot header component. Sorry. Right, so we have this header component, and let's go ahead and see what's there in console. So we have still this header component available here. We got this h1 which is inside the header component, and let's go back to see the console here. So you can see product component ts line number 32, which is your header component. Why this header component is undefined? So let's talk a little bit about this, and then we will move ahead and assign the values, right? So earlier, I think it was before Angular 8. Okay. So uh, remember at what time your this components which you are trying to access with which is actually available within your view will be available. So there are two scenarios to this. One, there might be possibility that the component or the element you are trying to access using view child is still not initialized. What's that scenario? I mean, how it can not be initialized? So every component has its own lifecycle hook. Remember this. So right now, if I talk about lifecycle hook of your product component, because your product component is your parent component, right? So let's go back to this diagram, this list of lifecycle hooks. So what will happen for product component is product component first. I'm not sure if it works. Yeah. So this product component will go through this lifecycle loops, right? So it will follow the same sequence. So it will go to first ng on init. It will initialize. I mean, the component will be initialized. It will see if there is any ng on changes. It means if it has some input and output properties. It checks if there is some ng on do check event which has been implemented. It initializes its content, and then it will go ahead and initialize the views, so everything which is available on its view. So this header component is right now available on the product component view. So it at this point of time, let's go back. Yeah, at this point of time, all the contents, all the components which is actually available inside view of product component will start getting initialized. And then you have to also think about ecom header. Ecom header also has the same lifecycle events, right? So now header component will also go through the same sequence. So let's say your header component has some asynchronous call to get the data from backend. And now considering both has its own lifecycle events, can you guarantee this ng on init will be initialized before your component is initialized? The answer is of course no, right? We cannot guarantee. So you have to always keep this in mind in case your child component, sorry, oh, it's a child component, yeah. So in case you are trying to access any component using view child and it contains some code which can cause delay in the initialization of that particular component, you cannot access that within your ng on init. I hope this is clear. And now that's the same reason we don't have access. We don't, this component is not accessible here. But do we have any synchronous call inside header component right now? The answer is no. Uh, is it? I'm not sure. Let me just uh, see what's happening. Just checking if anything which is running in background. So see, okay, not anything which I can find, but let's move on. Anything else? Okay, YouTube is on, so probably that might be causing an issue. And apart from that, okay, just let me know if it happens. Okay, probably YouTube maybe a culprit because it was running in the background. So yeah. So we now know what can be the issue. Accessing it is fine now. Yeah, actually probably YouTube might be an issue. So yeah. So let's see. I mean, this header component is what is can cause an issue. But in this scenario, current scenario, we don't have any code inside header component, right? So if I want to access this inside ng on init, is there any flag, right? Maybe I want to access this because I know that, okay, header component will be available always whenever this product component is initialized. So in that case, there is a flag. So if we can also pass this flag, which is known as which one? Static. So I can make it as static true. Okay. So by using the static true flag, now this component is going to be available here. So it's already running. So let's go ahead and see, and let's try to make sure that whatever I'm saying is right. And here it is, right? So you can see product component line number 32 is it is available here. But there might be some scenarios. Let's say you are trying to access any third-party component via using view child, or you are trying to access any other component which is already written by your team members, and you are trying to use view child and with static true. So what will happen is if you try to do that, of course, you will not get any instance. So that's a way to verify, okay, this is something which I cannot access using static true. So what I have to do is I have to make it static false, which is default. So if I don't give anything, if I don't provide anything, static is by default false. So I don't have to pass anything here. But make sure if you are sure that you want to access it inside ng on init and it's safe to use here, make it static true. Now let's go back and talk about the after view init, right? So let's make the static false by default, and then let's implement after view init. And here I can call it as ng after view init, right? So of course you can see this by using by referring to this, and then you can press F12 and it will give you the function name. So this is another way to verify, or of course your Visual Studio gives you the IntelliSense. So what's happening here is after unit implement interface, I already did that, but probably I made a spelling mistake. So yeah, view was wrong, right? So yep. So here it is. So after view unit, now I'm sure that okay, whatever component I am trying to access using view child is safe to be accessible here. So what I can do is I can just go ahead and do. So I can say this dot header component dot. I can access all the properties, all the methods of any component which I'm trying to access via view child here, and then I can assign it as, let's say, product component. I can assign a new header, and you can also call the properties, right? So in case you want to trigger, let's say, another component some action on your components button click, you can actually go ahead and do that. So you just have to do header component dot whatever function that particular component has. Yeah. So let's see, and now you have this product component, which is coming from ecom header. This is h1, and this is your value. So this is what you can do using the view child. But let's see one thing. So let's go back to console. And this is something which you may have found. And if you try to actually use Angular before, you might have seen this error. So this is something not new. This is one of the most searched error which is available on internet for Angular. And good thing is now Angular has a documentation to explain what this error is. What is this error? And they have a video and they have a description as well. So you can see this error commonly occurs when you have added template expression or begin to implement lifecycle loops like after unit or ng changes. It is also common when dealing with loading status and sync operations or a child component changes its parent binding. So these are the common use cases. And there are multiple ways to actually debug this error. So most important one to actually understand the lifecycle loops. So if you are actually calling some methods uh, which should not be accessible within some of the lifecycle loops, so it may cause an error. But what about this scenario, right? Why it is happening here? In this case, this error is actually something which is only available during development mode. If I create a production build, it will not occur. So the reason being it actually on development mode, in such cases like this after view unit, your life cycle, not life cycle, your change direction runs twice, causing this error. But once you do production build, this error won't be there. In case you get such errors on your production, it means there is something wrong. There is something wrong binding which is happening, and you have to go ahead and fix this error. And of course, how to fix this error? So they have given you how you can actually debug this. So it's available on docs. Refer these docs in case you get any issues. Generally, as I said, right? So it happens when you try to actually do something which is not related to lifecycle hooks, or you call some different methods which should not be available in this lifecycle look. So those are common causes. But if you follow the lifecycle hooks, I mean, what will be called after what? So you will not get this error most of the time. The only thing is you will get this error in your dev mode, and there are ways to actually avoid this. Let's see how you can do that. And the first way is, of course, using set timeout, which you shouldn't be doing it. So you can do set timeout, and then you can say comma 0, and sorry. So let's see this first by using set timeout. So what we have done here is, let's see uh, syntax is correct. So you can see, yeah. So you can see the error is gone, but set timeout is very you should not use set timeout, just to be frank, because it actually uh, I mean, the problem with set timeout is actually it will cause your main thread to actually stop. And this is one of the common causes of having a performance bottleneck in your application. I have seen so many applications using set timeout just to actually achieve something which could have been done using RxJS operators and something like this. So just because you saw this error and you try to look for some solution, you will find one of the solution as using set timeout, but never do that. Just let it be as it is, and you will not face this issue in production anyway, so you're safe. But never use set timeout. Never use set timeout. Okay, and another way of doing this is something like which is given on docs. I mean, it actually keeps track of previous value and current value, and they update the value on something like this. So let's see. So I'll do one thing. So here I'll implement another interface, which is after view checked. So let's implement this after view checked. And here what I can do is I can say I can create another variable. This is generally what this is something you will find in docs as well. So I can say this is previous value, and then you can have current value as well. And so I can say here this dot previous value is equals to this dot product header product, sorry, header component dot header, right? So this is the previous value, and then I can say here if previous, and then I can assign a new value here. For example, let's say right now we have a single value, but let's say this value is something which is coming based on your button click, or let's say coming from something else, right? So you can say this dot current value is equals to, I can say this is new header, just an example, right? So and then I can compare if previous value is not equals to this dot current value, and then I can say this dot header component dot header is equals to this dot current value. I mean whatever the new value is which is coming, right? And let's see if we get the same error again, which we shouldn't, but let's just to verify, right? So after view check, I mean at this point of time the change section has already been done, and let's see if you get this. Okay, we are still getting this error somehow. The reason being same, right? So reason being same because you will this change section will run twice, causing this error, which is of course comes in development mode. But in case you don't want to actually do something here, you can also do it after a few checked, just to be sure. In case this is some, if you are still getting some error on production, so try using this after content after view checked, where probably you might be doing something wrong. So you can do something like this just to avoid this error. Otherwise, it's absolutely fine. As I said, you can do everything here in after view init, and uh, that's absolutely fine. So this is error you will often get in your dev mode. Don't worry about it, and don't try to use set timeout in case you already have some application where some developers are using set timeout just to avoid this error. Just go ahead and remove it. It will just give you performance hits on your production application, nothing else. It has no advantages, I would say. Just causes a lot of issues. So this is how you can actually do component communication using view child. So what if you see this code clearly, what we are doing here is we can actually go ahead and access the properties. I mean, I can assign the values by using view child. And of course, I can also this dot header component, and you can see I can also call any events which is available on this particular component. So native element properties. Okay, so as you mentioned, Angular Universal, and in Angular Universal, remember, so you have to always go ahead and check where you are running, but it is absolutely fine to access native element properties. The reason being, so I'll just tell you the reason. Earlier, if you might have used this renderer 2 service, right? So okay, I'm not sure why this search is taking time, but you might have actually used renderer 2 service in past. With the introduction of Ivy, actually Ivy makes this render 2 as absolute. You can go ahead and use the native elements. Just make sure in case you're using Angular Universal, you have a check whether it is running on your server or it is running on your client. But it is absolutely fine to use native element. You don't have to use render 2 anymore. And Angular material is actually already using native elements, so you can get probably refer an example. And I think there was a blog. Let me just share the link. Of course, I had the same question few weeks ago, and let me just check my threads, and I think it should be available here. Yeah. So this is a blog post from Adam, who works on Angular core team. So he wrote this blog post in case you want to handle what is I mean you want to handle the such scenarios in your universal. So this is the typical way we do it, right? So this one. So if it is running your so you always check if it is platform browser, then you do browser stuff or you do server stuff here. So what he did is actually he created a service. So if you can see, this is service A, and then there is an API call, and on components, what he is doing here is, so he's saying you can actually just inject this if it is running on browser. So he took a simple example, and then he said, okay, rather than actually checking everywhere if it is running on client or server, you can actually do it via service itself. So you don't have to do it in every line of code. So that's what the approach he took. Okay. Now let's take an example of view children. I mean, we are going to use the same header component. So let's see. So I'll do is I'll just add multiple instances of header component here and see. Yeah, it's really useful. I mean, I love the way he did it, because if I have to implement SSR, I have to duplicate a lot of code, which is of course not manageable, right? I mean, doing it everywhere. So now let's see here. What we have done is we have placed multiple instances of header here, and let's go back to our code. Sorry, these elements, right? So you can see, of course, we have multiple ecom header available here, but I can just see this header only once. So let's discuss about what view child does. So if you use view child, what it is going to do is it is going to take the first instance which is available on your template. Remember this. It will always take the first instance which is available on your component, and it will ignore the rest. That's what view child is. So to avoid this, what you can do is, in case you have multiple instances, we have already seen this in past. Remember content child? So yes, content child did the same. And if you needed multiple instances, what we had to do is we have to use content children. It means I have multiple instances. So same here. So I'm saying, okay, I have multiple instances and I want to access those. So I'll be using view children. So here, so I can say view children, header component, and I'll call it as header children component, and which is type of query list of header component. So let's see. Implicit has anytime. What is this? Okay, view children. Okay, probably this is coming from correctly. Okay, so Krishna has, but those are not children of header. No, I'll remember. we right now we are into product component, so they are children of product component. They are not children of header component. So if I had to actually access the childrens of header component, I will write this code in the header component itself. I will not write this here. I think let me just change the my laptop into performance mode. Okay. So what we have done is we now have the view children instance here, and then we are using query list. So this is important. So query list has actually added few more properties over the years. So if you would try to use query list in like different version of Angular, you will find different properties as well. So remember this, keep this in your mind. Whatever properties we are going to see here, it's not available in the previous version. Sorry, it's after like Angular 9. So you will find some extra properties being added. And view children by default has this static as false. So static property as false. So it means, of course, I cannot access this inside ng on init. So what we have to do is either you have to access after inside after view init, or let's say after any action has been triggered, right? So in case you have button click or something like that, you can also access those years. This property is there. So here let's do one thing. So here I can say this dot header children component, and then you can see these are the properties which we have available. So generally we use for each. You have changes, which is an observable. I'll not talk about this property right now because we have not introduced the concept of streams so far, and I don't want to complicate, because as soon as a new developer who starts learning RxJS, everything goes for a toss, right? So all the concepts which you have learned it goes for a toss, because RxJS is the difficult part understanding Angular. So I'll keep it separate. So the idea is to actually introduce you to RxJS first and then talk about such properties where we have observables. So right now I'm going to show you multiple properties. So it has, let's say, it has first. So in case you want to access the first instance of your header children component, you can do it using first. It also has last. And I think recently it got this get property. So you can also pass the index number to get the instance of of the component which is available at this particular in location. So you can also pass this index. So that's what I'm saying, right? So you will find few extra properties being added in each and every version of Angular. So make sure whatever version you are using, you know what are the properties available. For example, changes, it might not be available in case you are already on Angular 6 or 7. It's not available there. Get is something which is recently added. First and last, which is I think again introduced after Angular 8. So just make sure. So here we have so yep, you what you mean by can we add new properties? New properties is something which you cannot add, but you can of course go ahead and like change the properties, right? That's what we are doing here. So you can do last dot header. So I can just say, okay, this is last property should have this is last component, last header component, right? So if I go back to our view, and you will find, okay, this is the last header component. So yeah. Can we add new property to last child using dynamically? Dynamically, I mean, how you will do that? So that's what I mean, you can access the existing properties and methods which are available, but probably I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay, and of course, then you have this dot header children component dot for each, and then you can also do a for loop. As I think previously we have seen an example of using for off in container component. So in case you don't want to use for each, go ahead and use for off loop. that's absolutely fine. So what I will what I will suggest or what I will prefer is of course for of loop. So rather than using for each, I mean, it's not like for each will be like slower or something, but of course, if I have access to for of loop, I will keep it. I'll use for of loop because it's easier to read as well, right? So it's up to you, but yeah, this is what you can do using view children. So if you have multiple components, uh, you will be using for view children. If you have single instance, you will be using view child. And in strict mode, remember this, lot of developers don't use strict mode because they get some issues. For example, if I remove this, right, and then you start getting an issue, okay, now what to do? I cannot assign undefined value. So this is something which is actually inside the Angular code base. So if you refer the Angular code base, you will find they use this operator in case of this view child, view children, or content children, wherever this value is undefined, right? But apart from that, I mean, of course, all the properties which you define, which is like, of course, string, boolean, you know the values, you can actually define a default value. In case it's an array, of course, you can just define an empty array. The only difference, only problem comes when you try to use view child or view children. So this is the, so here I'll introduce you to one more thing, which is known as template ref. So let's go ahead and see what template ref is. It's you will be this will be useful a lot of times in case you try to you are into some situation where you want to access any of your HTML tag which is available on your template itself. Remember this, I'm talking about the template of your own component. It's not, I'm talking about, let's say, ecom header and you want to access it. So I'm talking about the product component itself, and it has its own input property. Sorry, not input property, but it has its own some HTML template, HTML tag, which you want to access inside your TS file. So let's see. So let's define a div. A simple example which I will take. Let's say you have, if we don't have an API call, just assume that we have an API call, and then that API call returns you the list of errors. And what you have to do is you have to bind that list of errors on your template. How you will do that? So this is something which is really useful and you can use. For example, let's say I'll define this div and I will say this is div's ID is something known as, let's say this is error or API error. Okay, this is something which is going to come from backend, and then I just leave it as it is. I'm not adding anything here because all the values is something which we will bind once I get all the values from your backend, and then based on the error, if it has the error or not, I will append those values. So now I have to access this first inside my template, of course. So how we can do it? Of course, we can take help of view child, because this is something which is available on my view. So I can say view child rather than actually passing the header, the component name itself, because we don't have a component, but we have an element. So you can just give single quotes. We are saying, okay, this is a string property, and then we are passing the same name which we have defined here, which is called as template reference. So we are passing this template reference to my view child, and then I'm saying this is a error div, and it is type of what we do, element ref of type any. And again, right, so we are using strict mode, so I'll be using this one. And of course, I mean, this is something which I can also use static as true. So first, let's try to access this using on ng-on-it. Let's see what we get actually. So I can say this is console.log, and here I can say this is error diff. So what I'm expecting is I'm expecting an element of type div, or I'm actually expecting a div element. So let's see here, and query list this. So we have an element ref, and you can see it is a div, and then it gives you native element and then all the properties or attributes of div, right, which is available. So you can see it has everything which is actually available in your div as an HTML element. So of course we got the success. Now what I want to do is I want to bind some error to this. So what we can do is, let's say on click of toggle button. So on click of toggle button, what I will do is I'll say this dot error div dot native element. Now here is a catch. Before uh, before like Angular 9, before Ivy came in, it was always advised to use renderer or renderer 2 to do this DOM manipulation. It was always advised. It was even in the docs that you shouldn't be doing DOM manipulation directly. Now, as I said, renderer 2 is absolute because of Ivy coming into the picture. So I can go ahead and directly assign inner text is equals to some value, right? So I can say there is an error making API call, please retry. Right? So I'm just directly using this inner text here, which I know, of course, is a valued property. And let's see. And what you have to do is toggle, right? So I'm not sure which toggle is this. Toggle table. Okay. So and toggle. Okay. Here. So you can see there is an error making API call, please retry. So we are getting this message because we of course clicked on this button, and let's inspect this element, and this is here, right? So we have div ng content and this value, which is actually we are binding here, right? So this is how you can actually make use of template ref. There are, of course, lot of cases. Probably as we move ahead and we start taking some advanced scenarios, we will take some more example of using template ref. But this is just to give you an idea that this is also possible. You can also get the access of any element by using template ref. So you have to just give up, let's say, property name by using hash, and then you can access this element inside your template by using view child, and make sure that it is type of element ref, or in case if it's multiple, you can also go ahead and use query list probably. So yeah, this is what template ref does. And let's see what else we have. Okay, after view check, we already spoke about why that message is going away. It was clicked. Is it? I don't think so. It's going away. It's already there, right? So if you click on toggle, it will be still there. I mean, it will just update the same div. That's it. It will not go away, right? So you have to probably do something. I mean, probably a refresh kind of stuff, and then make this property inner text is equals to blank or empty, whatever you want to. Okay, so this template ref is done, and I've what I wanted to add few things more related to this content projection, not content projection, but related to the template. So let's do that, and we will move ahead and talk about the pipes which we have. So there is few things. Let's say I will take simple example because they have very huge use cases, very advanced use cases as well. But probably we will do that later on in case we do the streams for like advanced stuff. But right now let's just use them. So first example, uh, first we will talk about something known as ng container. So ng container is very useful, and let's see an example where I can use it. Okay. Mm, Bootstrap. Angular bootstrap accordion. So I think we are already using ng bootstrap. Let's see which one we are using, ng or ngx bootstrap. Okay, we are using ng bootstrap, so probably we can use the accordion from ng bootstrap itself. And let's see the code. So we have ngb accordion, ngb panel, and what is this? This is Okay, let's take an example. Do we need to do anything else? Okay, I'll create a new ngGC, and let's say I'll call it as comment component. Probably your orders, or let's say your products has some feedbacks, right? So I'll call it as a comment component. Probably we can use it later on with some dynamic data coming from backend, but right now I'll just copy the same thing which we have here, ngb accordion, and let's see, and I'll place this comment component on app component.html. Okay, so this is the same component which we copied, right? So fancy title. Okay, it works. So here, let's try to do one thing. Let's try to repeat this entire comment component or accordion multiple times. Okay, so how we can do it? So I'll go to this component comment, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, let's say, an array. So I'll say this is comments. Right now I'm just going to put some values like 1 2 3. Okay, and in our HTML I'm going to use a div, and here I can say star ng for is equals to let c of comments, and here so if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just repeating the same accordion 3 times. So let's see. So we got this same accordion 3 times, which is available on my UI. But this is not what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you this. So how many times we have divs? So we have 3 times. The div is actually available 3 times. Did we actually needed a div here? The answer is of course we don't need a div. I mean, what we just needed is we needed this accordion to be displayed 3 times. So this div is actually useless, and it is just adding an extra layer of element on your template. Can we avoid this? This is where the ng container comes into the picture. So what I can do is, rather than using an element, I can do ng container, and until unless I have some content, there won't be any extra div which will be displayed. So let's go ahead and see this now, ng container with the ng container example. And let's inspect this element now. And you will see you just have ngb accordion. I mean, you don't have an extra layer of element or any extra layer of div element which was available, causing just adding an extra element for nothing. So why it is important to actually use ng container in some cases, because probably you don't want to actually uh, you might be getting some issues while providing. Okay, so probably you might be getting some issues while styling your elements, because you just have an extra div with there. You are getting you have to actually go ahead and access that div element, then inside that element you have to go ahead and access your components. Rather than that, you can just use ng container, and you don't have to worry about that extra element which we are getting into element. So this is where you can use ng container. As I said, there are a lot of advanced uses for ng container. This is a smaller one. This is something which you can always use in whenever you have a small application and you don't want to add any extra level of element into your DOM. So you can just use ng content. What else? What else we have? Let's see. So I think we saw an example of ng if I'm not wrong. If I'm not wrong, where was that? Did we deleted that? Order. Okay. So I think we have removed it. Probably order product click toggle. Yeah, we removed that. But let's see an example of using ng template using ng if. So here, what we will do is I'll place this toggle table, right? So let's use this toggle table functionality again. And what we did here is what we will do here is, so I'll do one thing. So here I'll use ng container and I'll say this is a star ng if is equals to. So on toggle table, what we are doing is we are making this hidden. So I'll say, okay, this ng if hidden, or I'll say else, and let's see what I can do using else. But let me just complete this ng container. I'll place it here. And what I want to do is I want to actually, in case it is hidden, I want to show an template saying this particular table is hidden or something like that. So you can also do ng template, okay, and give it as a name, give it a name. Let's say I'm using template ref, which we have already used, and I'll say this is hidden table, okay. And inside this template, I define a div, and I can say, okay, this table is hidden. Click on toggle to see the content, okay. And now I can just use this hidden table template here. So what will happen? So if it is hidden, this template will be shown here. Let's go ahead and verify. So let's click on toggle table and you can see, just let me make it as H1. So probably because it's too small, right? So, and we have a lot of contents to show. So I can just use H1 here, toggle table. And you can see this table is hidden. Click on toggle to see the content. So this is how you can actually use ng if and else. So generally, a lot of developers are actually aware of ng if, but they are not aware of else and how they can use it. So this is the way. This is the way you can actually create an ng template. Again, if you see ng template is itself not visible. I mean, this ng template is not visible here. The only thing is available is h1. Same, if you see the table, of course, this ng container is not visible. The only thing which is available or and visible is your product list. So these are some examples of using ng container and ng template, and probably we can take advanced examples as well in future. Krishna, so I'm using for inline form edit. Yes, that's something which we'll discuss about when we go to forms, not right now. So yeah, as we said, right? I mean, this entire Angular getting started is going to be more than 20 hours. So you have a lot of things coming on. Sorry, and this will continue until unless I'm not getting bored. Stop. But yeah. So let's take an break now, and we will be back in few minutes. So probably it's 7 p.m. right now in my clock. So 10 minutes, and then we'll be back, and we'll talk about the built-in pipes. And if you're wondering where the ng on destroy is gone, yes, we'll discuss about it as well. Yeah. So see you later. Sorry, see you in 10 minutes. And meanwhile, in case you want to have some questions, drop it, or you want to discuss among yourself, go ahead and do it. Probably you can share your contacts on Twitter and wherever you are available, and you can make new friends, right? Yeah. So what I was saying is, this is the repository in case you want to clone it. and you can start it if you want to, and you will be able to find all the course content on this repository itself. So this is the link. And apart from this, in case you are interested in building and publishing your own libraries, you can actually go to this YouTube channel, and you will be able to find two videos, which is just a second. This is Angular libraries, building and publishing Angular libraries, and then adding adding secondary entry points, which is important in case you want to make your libraries tree shakeable. And we have few more videos. Angular best practices is one of the live stream which we did last year. So in case you want to learn about the best practices, you can actually watch this video as well. And yes, coming back to on destroy. So on destroy lifecycle hook is actually is something which will be called once your DOM element is removed from once your element is removed from the DOM. So what are the scenarios when your DOM will be removed from the when your elements will be removed from the DOM? One example, in case you have a routing, so you move from one page to another page, your DOMs, your elements will be removed because you are transitioning from one component to another component. Another scenario is, of course, using ngIf, right? So if you are using ngIf, your element gets removed from the DOM itself. So we took an example of product list and we added on destroy here to go ahead and check when it is called. So now let's go back to your view, and here, so we can see, click on toggle table and your table is back, and click on toggle table again and your component is destroyed because it is removed from the DOM. So it is important to understand when does your on destroy gets called. So it will be always on once your elements gets removed or your component gets removed from the DOM. So at this point, this will be called. So this is ng on destroy, and we don't have anything to clear right now. I mean, don't have any observable as of now. So we are not doing any operation here. But as we talk about HTTP and observables, we will see how we can actually use ng on destroy to unsubscribe to the streams, right? So just to make sure that we don't have any memory leak. So this is on destroy, and the next thing probably, yeah, so probably we'll be able to do this, and we can start with the view encapsulation as well. So next thing, which is really important, Angular gives you some built-in pipes. In case you have used AngularJS, I think it was called something known as filters. I think it's been some 4 to 5 years to me when I used AngularJS last, but I think they were called filters. And now in Angular, you have pipes. So pipes are actually useful. Let's talk about what pipes are. So we have already used one pipe, I think, in our example. So we use something known as pipe JSON. Yeah, this one. So we use this JSON pipe so far. So what pipes does basically? So pipes are used to transform the data. So remember, transform, and this word is really important because it tells you what you can do using pipe. Transform means you have the same object, but while representing that object, you are representing in a different way. What are the examples of transforming? For example, let's say you have a date, but on your UI, you are displaying that date in a different format. The actual data is as it is. You are not modifying the actual data. That's the whole concept of transformation, right? For example, we use transformation in general as well. For example, I'm not sure how many of you from India, but Dangal movie, right? So Amir Khan actually transformed himself from a fat guy to actually like muscular guy, right? But is Amir Khan a different guy? No, he's the same guy, but he's transformed. So that's the concept. So your values, your object remains same, but while displaying those, you are displaying that in a different format. That's what you can achieve. Don't try to actually update something using pipes, right? So the whole concept is transformation. You can do transformation using pipes, not your data manipulation or something else. So let's see a few built-in pipes which we have available. And what we will do is we'll take an example, we'll take a table because probably we'll find different values in this table. So we can actually use transform here. So let's see, I'll go back to ecom product list and let's go to HTML and let's start using uh, each and every pipe. So we have lowercase, uppercase, and title case. So let's see. So we have name. So I can do pipe. So here, not here, here, right? So we have name, product name. What I can do is I can use pipe symbol. So this pipe, which is available on top of enter key, probably if you have the same keyword. Yeah. So he applied that diet workout as a pipe. And then you can just do uppercase, right? For example, you want to convert everything to uppercase. So you don't have to do anything else. You just use uppercase pipe and everything is converted to uppercase. Similarly, if I want to do it only, if you want to convert in lowercase, I can just use lowercase pipe and everything will be converted to lowercase. If I need title case, so I can do title case and everything will be converted to title case. So in title case, the first character is capital and all the remaining characters are small. So these are three initial, right? So initial pipes which we have used. Now we have date, currency, JSON, percent, and slice and async. So async pipe is something which we will use when we speak about observable. So it's not going to be covered right now. But let's talk about others. So first, let's use currency. So here we already have price. So I can use currency pipe here. And by default, the currency is sorry, your localization is EN US. So you will find dollars. In case I want to use something else, you can just pass it as a parameter. So you have to pass the currency code. So Angular gets the data from, I think, some website where all the currency codes are mentioned and they just pull the data from that particular source. So you may find that probably your currency code is not available and you will find that, okay, rather than the currency code, you are just getting the currency value, for example, INR, right? So for example, INR has a currency with currency symbol which is available on that particular website, and this is the rupee symbol, right? So I can use rupee symbol without doing anything. I have to just pass INR. For example, if I want to use euro, so I know the currency code is euro. So EUR, GBP, which is Great Britain pounds, as now they are out of the Europe, so you can use pounds as well. So, but by default, it's dollars. So let's make it INR, and also, okay, I'll talk about that later. But we have already seen JSON. Let's see percent. So uh, remember, one is 100%. So if I see this one value, which will be 100%, 200%, 300%. So make sure that in case you have a numeric value and you want to convert it to percent, then you are using it. Otherwise, if you have just a value and then you will be converting it to percent, that will be a problematic value, right? I mean, it will be incorrect value. So percent is done, and let's go back to date because of course this is really important, and this is where we'll talk about a few more things as well. So by default date, if I see we have the date was actually long date format, right? So if I just give a date, it by default uses short date format. So it's like this one is short date format, and you can go to angular.io and you will be able to find these different combination for your date pipe. So I can just go to date. So date pipe, and it will give you, okay, these are the values. So there are two ways you can actually use date pipe. You can either pass a format, for example, dd, mmm, yyyy. So this is one of the date format, right? So you have 01 Jan 2021, or you can also use sorry, options. So for example, if I want to use this format, rather than actually giving the format, I can just copy this and use this here. Can we pass custom formatter? Yes, you can extend the date pipe itself. So probably when we write our own pipe, I can give you an example. So this date format, medium date format, which is available here. So choose one in case which is if it is available, the date format which you are looking at. If it is available here, you can just use it from here. In case you want to write your own, yes, you can do that. You can extend date pipe. So probably for later on. So and you can also do one more thing. So here. You can also chain multiple pipes. So for example, I can just use date and then I can say uppercase. So all the strings which are available in date will be converted to uppercase. For example, Jan, right? So if you see Jan was small, now it's JAN in capitals, and as well as AM and PM. So you can go ahead and do that as well. So you can just pipe, multiple pipes, whatever you want to apply. That's absolutely fine. That's acceptable. And most of the pipes also contains this properties which you can pass after the colon. So this is your properties which you can pass, and not all the pipes can actually take those properties. For example, if I go to the implementation of percent, let's see. It contains, I think it takes the string digit info, how many digits you want to display. So you can see an example, I mean implementation here. So every pipe will have some properties to show. So for example, date has date, and then you can also pass string, you can also pass number, and then you can also pass the format, time zone. These are different properties which your date time can take, and you can build your own. So now we are done with date, currency, JSON, already seen percent, slice. So let's see an example of slice pipe. So slice is something which we can use to actually render some specific rows, right? So in case you want to apply filters, right? So if you want to apply filters, this is something where this can be very useful. So let's right now we are not writing your our own filter. Let's take an example by using slice. Sorry, not here. So how many records we have in our table? 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So 3 records. I can apply a pipe slice, and then you can give the start index, and then you can give end index. So I'll say, okay, display the values from 0 to 1. And now you will get only one record, right? So this is the first index which you are getting. Display from 1, sorry, 1 to 2. So leave the first record and display the next record, right? So this is how you can also use slice pipe, but always prefer actually sorting and filtering at the server side in case you have large database, large data to work with. So, but of course, slice pipe is also available in case you want to use it. So you can pass start index and end index, and it will just slice the records, and it will show only those records which are available or which comes within that particular index values. So I'll just remove it. Okay, so these are few built-in types which we have available. As we said, async is something which we will talk about later. And the next thing which we have is view encapsulation. So let's see that, and to military none, shut it on. Okay, let's see if I can use something from here. Yeah, let's take example of product component, and we will try to use the different view encapsulation mechanism which is available here. So let's go ahead and apply. Okay, because it is really important to understand where and how this view encapsulation, different view encapsulation techniques can be used. So first one is emulated. So, but how to change this property? So let's talk about that first. So every component has this property called view encapsulation, not view encapsulation. And it takes three properties, three values, sorry. So you have none, emulated, and shadow none. by default it's emulated, it's not none. Right now if you see none and it has star, because it is VS Code is saying that most of the developers use none as encapsulation. I hope you understand this star. So uh, Visual Studio Code actually collects the data from GitHub, and it checks what many developers are using. So if you see, if you have written even Node.js code, you will find that sometime when you do dot, you will get a list of methods with star in it, because it says, okay, these are the methods which are high, which are mostly used on the internet. Same for, if you remember, we did for view children, then we said dot and we got for each changes. So that's how it is. I mean, just to give you an idea about what that star is. So by default, the encapsulation is emulated. What this emulated is. So let me just make it default. I mean, it's already default, but let's talk about this emulated first, because it is the by default, and most of the time we don't worry about the default values, right? Because it's default value, so why do worry about it? So to talk about emulated encapsulation technique, and this is for styling. Oh, sorry, the most important thing I forgot to tell you, that this encapsulation is for your styling. And just to give an example, what I will do is I have an h1 here, right? So if you see in app component.html, I have h1, and I think I have h1 available in many places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a style for the h1 element, which or h1 tag, which is available, which is not available here, but let's make it available, right? So I have an h1 tag here. So I'll write a style for this. So I can say h1, sorry, right? So I'll say h1, and here I can just give background. I am not an expert in CSS or SAS, so I'll just play with the values which I know. So here I'm going to use background color, and I'm going to use background color as still blue, because that's blue is my favorite one. And then I can say color, which is white, right? So still blue is background color, and then we have font color as white. So let's go ahead and see this. Okay, so we have multiple H1 elements available on my entire view right now. So if you see, this is also H1, this new title is also H1. But why this styling is only applied to this H1? Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this to understand the default emulated mode. So whenever you create a new component, here what Angular is going to do is Angular is going to attach a attribute to each and every component by default. This is what happens in emulated mode. So if you see this ecom product, right? So ecom product has this ng content WIC21. Ecom header has different one, ng content WIC19. So these are different attributes which you will find on each and every component. Even on your root, you will find, okay, this is ng host WIC21, and in order, ecom order, right? So you can see it's ng content WIC21, and then ng host WIC16, because it's like this is something which is rendered inside the same ng container, right? So you will find, but you will find the different attributes on each and every component. This is the magic which happens behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about it, and that's how your stylings are maintained as well. So let's go ahead and see the style. So if I inspect this H1 element, you will find that, okay, this H1 is actually applied to this particular matching element. So ng content WOI 719. So where is that? ng content WOI 719. So this is the H1 to this to which it will be applied. So if I see this H1, it has ng content WOI C17. So it won't be applied to this. So that's why actually you can write different component, and you can style the same element in a different way in a different component. That's possible because of this dynamic attribute which gets added by default. So that's also the reason that your in Angular you can have separate styling for each and every component. By default, they will never conflict in the emulated mode. Remember this. So in case you have a global styling defined, for example, let's say here, right? So I can just use H1 also here, and then I can just do background color in case let's use tomato, right? And font color as white. So you will find, okay, all the other H1 right now, because I'm doing it in root, right? So this code is available inside root. What happened to this? Okay, it's compiling. So this code is written in root. So you will find that all other H1 tag has background color as tomato and text as sorry, white. But only this element or this component has a different color because we have defined the different properties, different H1 attributes to this particular component. So that's how you can override. I mean, in case you want to in emulated mode. This is something which is in emulated mode and which is default by default. Default by default. Cool. So I hope you understood the emulated mode, and now let's talk about next one. So you have none and shadow DOM. So none is widely used by all the third-party components who wants you to override the styling. Remember this. Earlier, I think let's go back to Angular materials because in Angular material, when it was created, the default mode was emulated. Now, if I go ahead and check, so let's go ahead and do what is that? Components src. Let's check one of the component which we have probably autocomplete, and let's autocomplete.ts. So we'll find, okay, this encapsulation, right? So you will find it as none, and it has an advantage that now developers can go ahead and override this particular go ahead and override the styling for this particular component. In case you have used Angular material before, the only way to actually override the CSS was nghost. How many of you have used nghost? I'm sure many of you. So um, now you can actually avoid using nghost because it actually gives you view encapsulation as none. It means you can go ahead and override the CSS itself. So let's take an example, and here the same product component which we have, right? So right now we have this H1 as background color steel blue, color white, and then we have this encapsulation as emulated. Just make it none. So let's make it none. And see what happens. Now, once you make your view encapsulation as none, you actually add this particular property in your global scope. Remember this. So right now what we have done is we have added this particular property in your global scope. So it is actually changing the background color for all the H1 elements and as well as font. How it gets managed in other reusable components, let me just tell you that, and then we can also see an example where we will override it, right? So here we can wrap this particular H1 element using, so I can say, okay, there are two ways. So one is, of course, I can give it as the same example, I mean post, and then I can give a class name. So if you see this, I'm not actually something not I am actually doing it. This is something which is actually available here. So you can give an host selector to your component. So I'm giving a host class name here. So I'll say class, and let's see what happens after this, because that's really important to understand. And then I can say this ecom product. And now once we have done this, let's go back to our view and see this. What happened? Because it needs few more changes. So I can say this is host, and then I can move this h1. I hope I'm writing the correct syntax, but yeah. So let's see this example, and then I'll show you one more example using BEM, which which we call it as BEM. So here, what we have done is here, let's go back, product information, why it is different, product. Yeah, so you can see we actually have a class ecom product, which is getting added on top of ecom product. It is available, right? And now I don't understand why. I think this, I'm confused with the syntax of Sass, because as I said, I mean, I'm not an expert into it, but I think this should work. So host h1. Oh my God, what's wrong here? Why it is taking the global one? I should be able to actually wrap it inside this. Okay, let's do the other way. Probably, as I said, I'm not an expert in Sass, but ecom product, and let's see if this works. Okay, so this is what I wanted to achieve, just to give you an idea. So what we have done is, rather than actually adding this Sass or the styling, remember with none, what happened? It will go ahead and add this styling into our global scope, causing an issue that all the h1 elements actually were updated to background as still blue and color as white. Now what we have done is we are wrapping the h1 element with an extra class which we have applied on top of our component. So if you see this here, by using this host attribute, host property, we added an class called ecom product, which is same as our selector, and then we added into this. And after that, I wrapped the CSS or property of h1 with this particular class. So it will say, okay, it will look for an element which has class property as ecom product and all the h1 inside this element. By using it, we will make sure that this particular styling is actually not leaking to other components. But whatever new element which we add inside this component will inherit this h1. And let's see how to override it, because that's important, right? And you will find one interesting thing here. If you remember earlier, if you see h1, there was an dynamic property which was added here, right? So this ng content olm or whatever the dynamic property or attribute name was there, it is not there anymore. So it says ecom product, and the h1 inside ecom product will have this background color as still blue, and this is the color, and this is the default one, this is the global one, and this is getting overridden by this particular properties. This is what this styling thing here which is available is telling you. So this is the default one, and this is the one which we have written. But this also is actually available once you compile your code. This styling will be actually available in your global scope. So it means once I create my component and I expose it to someone else, they can also go ahead and override this as CSS as well, or CSS as well. So let's try to do that inside this one, component.scss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to access the property, this one, because right now, if you remember, the product component is actually getting rendered inside the comment component. So let's see if I can make it work, and let's see. So I can say dot ecom product, and now I will use different colors. So I can say, okay, this is blue one and this is white. Let's see. Let's hope it works. Okay, it didn't. Let's see why. So ecom container, and then you have ecom product inside this. Okay, so it has to be like this one. So I can use host here, same. Let's use class ecom comment, and then you can use ecom comment. I'm not sure if I'm doing it in correct way, but as this is Sass, it works. So what we need more than this? So I can I'm saying inside ecom comment find an ecom product, and still doesn't work. So let's see what's wrong here. So this is your container, and why this sorry, I'm actually applying it on wrong component itself. So let's go back to our container component and let's get rid of this first, and then if it's needed we will apply it. Let's see, format document. Okay, so it's not working. So let's see what we have. Ecom product, and then the h1, and actually this is not getting considered. And now let's use the same one, right? So I can just use host property here. So, and then you can use a class and wrap everything inside a class, and then I'll just use the same name, ecom container, and within SCSS I can just go back and probably use same one. Let's see if it works. So format. Okay, let's see what it is. So first it will look for an element which has class container, and then it will look for a element which has class ecom product, and then it will apply the h1. Okay, why still it is not working? Let's see. This is strange. So we have ecom container, then inside this we have ecom product, and then h1. Okay, I think child component is still taking the precedence. Why? Ecom product. Actually, I can go ahead and strange. I mean, it should work, but somehow, as I said, I'm not good into Sass. This is something which is happening, but you can actually do that. So once you expose this element to your users, right? So they can actually, they don't have to use the ng deep, right? So yeah, sorry, I earlier used the wrong name, but it's ng deep, which you might have used to actually override the styling of Angular material, but you don't have to do it that anymore. Actually, all the components, all the Angular material components, they use view encapsulation as none, so you can go ahead and override just by using the class name. So class name is generally your component tag name itself. So if you see the selector property, you will find the class name to be same as your selector property. So you can just say dot your selector, and then you can start applying the new styling which you want to. So this is what happens in none. I'm sure this is I couldn't make it work because of course some knowledge gap which I have due to Sass, but let's try to apply this in your global one, and let's see what happens here. So I just moved the same Sass into same SCSS into global one. That's strange. Probably if I can do this one, if I remove, just trying on. Okay, so it will always take the precedence from like its own component. That's might be an issue. So right now if you see, I'm able to actually provide a new styling to my h1 by using, I mean, so the syntax which I have used is here. So ecom product h1, and then I'm applying the styles to my h1 tag, which is available inside ecom product. So this is something which you can use. And let's go back to the shadow DOM. So have you seen any component using shadow DOM? So because there is one I know which is Ionic framework. So if I go to Ionic framework, not capacitor, So Ionic framework actually uses the shadow DOM by default. So if you see this code base, probably if we can refer Angular and src directives, providers, types, schematics, navigation versus scroll. It has few components as well. I'm not sure where they have core. So components, let's see. I think okay, all the components are actually TA6. Yeah. So but Ionic frameworks is something which uses shadow DOM, and shadow DOM has a different use case altogether. Let's go ahead and see that. Here what I will do is I will apply this apply the shadow DOM to this, right? So let's see. So encapsulation, which is view encapsulation dot shadow DOM. So let's see and see what happens when we do or make it as shadow DOM. So you can see once we apply a shadow DOM to an element, you will find something strange. Not here, but this styles. So you can see ecom header, and then it has shadow root, and then all the stylings are actually applied inside this particular component itself. So it won't be so it's like, in case you have some components and you don't want anyone to actually override the styling, you want this look and feel to be same, you can go ahead and use shadow DOM. That's what I think Ionic framework does, because in Ionic framework you won't be able to change the most of the stylings. You can do it. They use I think CSS variables. I think that's the one way to actually override it, but all the styling will be actually wrapped inside your own component. So if I just apply something here, right? So let's say h1, and let's use different color now, background color, which is, let's say, aqua, and let's use color as black. Let's see this. So you'll find, okay, now this header has this background color and this text color, but this is not the important one, but the importance is this. So you will find the styling will be wrapped inside its own component itself. So if you see emulated mode, it's like it's still available inside your global scope with some dynamic attributes which are applied, but in shadow DOM you will find that everything is wrapped inside its own component, which actually that's the use case in case you don't want to apply or don't want to override or don't want anyone to actually override the look and feel of your component. One way is actually, I'm sure you can do that by using inline CSS variables, not inline but CSS variables is one way to override it. And if you go to the Angular Ionic documentation, you will find there are few properties which are available, and you can actually override it by using this. So you'll see Ionic framework, and let's see docs Angular. But other frameworks, other UI library, like for example Angular Material uses view encapsulation none. Your NGX Bootstrap, NG Bootstrap, they both use as view encapsulation as none. So here, let's see, I think we have some components available here. Where is the list of components? React, Angular, components, Ionic ION button. Yeah, CSS. Yeah, this is the CSS custom properties. So they allow you to actually override it, and by using the CSS custom properties. So one way to actually do this is by using this custom properties, CSS properties. But remember, CSS properties are actually not supported in the older browser, but now no one is using the older browser. So in case probably if you don't have requirement to use Angular support I11, you can go ahead and use CSS custom properties as well. But a lot of Angular application which I have seen is they use Sass. I think what about this Angular Material? What they use? They also use Sass, looks like. Yeah, they also use Sass because they are using something from Angular, Material, right? So Material is which is by Google itself. So yeah, So this is it for the day. I think view encapsulation was the last point we wanted to discuss, and then tomorrow we can start with dependency injection, and we'll go through services and what are the different things which you can do using services. So yep, that's it for the day, and we will meet again tomorrow same time. And apart from that, of course, in case you find any value in the stream, please go ahead and talk about it. Please share it with your colleagues, your probably your juniors, whoever wants to actually learn about Angular. And yeah, that's it for the day. See you. Bye everyone.